Hello everyone, welcome to Canteen Cup. My name is Scott, and how is everybody today? Well, today I'm working from the inside for a change. Had a big outing yesterday and accomplished a few things. We have a Viking meetup scheduled in Heflin, Alabama on the 18th of January at the Heflin Rec Center between 12 and 3 p.m. So if you're in the area and want to learn more about Viking preparedness, there's going to be a group meetup there January 18th. So today I want to talk about communications preparedness, and it's a subject that's often overlooked in a lot of preparedness groups because they don't think about communications, because over the last 20 to 30 years, communications has become so easy and so prevalent that we take a lot for granted. However, one of the reasons why you're preparing or being prepared is in case those systems are degraded or flat out go away. So every group, should have at least a plan on alternate means of communications. And I want to preface this a little bit about who I am and why I feel like I can talk on this subject. Well, I've been a ham radio operator for 25 years. I've also served in a county I lived in the Auxiliary Communication Service. I have 8.5 years in the military. As a ham, I have served as a regional coordinator for emergency communications for approximately 5 states, and I have directed relief efforts pertaining to communications for several disasters. I have deployed on actual disasters and had to operate from field conditions during actual disasters. So that's a little bit about me and why, and some of my qualifications. I can go into more, but I think that's sufficient for now. Anyhow, as a group, and I'm talking about right now, I'm talking about communication between members of your group, because I'm sure not all of you live in the same house. Some of you may be a few, maybe 10, maybe 20 miles away, which is okay as long as you plan to, how am I going to tell so-and-so, John, what we're going to do if I can't call him up on the cell phone. So I want to bring a concept in here, and you probably heard it before if you've been on various preparedness channels and on Patreon, that there's an acronym called PACE, P-A-C-E, that's Papa Alpha Charlie Echo. And that acronym is used for quite a lot of things, but really it dates back to communications plans. And it's an Army term, and what the acronym stands for is primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So when you're developing your plan, that you should consider not only your primary plan, but what happens if your primary form of communication goes away. So I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit, just kind of briefly, and kind of throw some things out there to give you an idea. Now, mind you, that each group will have their own obstacles and benefits when it comes to a communications plan, and I'll talk about that as we go through it. So in starting your communications plan, and by the way, you should write this down, and each member of your group should have a copy of the communications plan that they can refer to. So one of the ways I look at communications, especially in relation to a plan, is convenience. In other words, if John is going to call Susie, who are both members of the same group, how's he most likely going to do it? more than likely for most of us, that's going to be via cell phone. John's going to pick up his cell phone. He's either going to hit speed dial, or he's going to go to his contact and hit call, or he's going to press a button and say, so-and-so, name your assistant, call Susie. And the call will be connected, and John and Susie can now talk to one another. And that's the same thing with other members of your group. If somebody wants to talk to somebody, they will more than likely get on their cell phone and they'll call. Alternatively, they may send a text message. I see a lot of younger people today spend a lot more time texting than they do actually talking on the phone. So that being said, you may consider that your primary means of communication. If things are going on and you still have a cell phone, get on the cell phone and call people, or get on your text app and text people. And that's your primary form of communication. Again, it's the most convenient. Almost everybody has a cell phone. Almost everybody carries it with them wherever they go. I know in my case, you are more likely to find me with a cell phone on my person than my wallet, because I carry mine around the house. So consider that a primary form of communication. So what happens if the cell phone goes away? Okay, now you have to fall back onto an alternate means of communication. Now, when we talk about these different levels, like I mentioned before, it's all about convenience. And typically, when you start getting into the A, C, or the E part of PACE, these are less convenient methods, but they're still usable, and they still help to establish and maintain communications. So for your alternate plan, let's say the internet, and that's a broad subject, but from the internet, you can send an email, you can send a text, you can chat, you can Facebook, you can use social media. There's a lot of ways to contact people through the internet. However, you got to have an internet connection. And if your primary means of communication, which is your cell phones, goes down, it means you no longer have internet access on your phone. So now you're going to have to go somewhere to an internet cafe. You're going to go home. You're going to go to the library. You're a little bit inconvenienced, but you can go to an internet source and get online. You can check your emails. You can check your Facebook. You can check whatever social media you use. There's group chats on the internet also. GroupMe is one. Discord is another. So that's an alternate. Is it as quick and easy as your cell phone? No, but it's still a pretty solid form of communication where you can pass a lot of information. I mean, you can even chat on the internet. So we'll call that your alternate. So if the cell phone goes down, then you have your internet. And the thing about the internet is there are lots of means to communicate. So you as a group, or you as a leader, depending on how your group is structured, need to determine what sources are you going to use from the internet to communicate with one another when your primary means of communications goes down. You might say, okay, well, we're going to have a group Facebook page. And it's a private group that only members can be a part of it. And so you can go to your group Facebook page and check for messages and pass messages back and forth. So call that your alternate. So you have a primary and you have an alternate. Let's say that the internet goes down. And it was really funny to tell a quick story. When Hurricane Katrina hit, and I went down to Gulfport, Mississippi for about 2.5 weeks to provide emergency communications down there because there wasn't any cell service, and the landline phones were down. And so I went down there as a radio operator and set up shop down there to communicate to people outside of the affected area so that we can get information out and get supplies in. In fact, while I was there through the radio, I was contacted by the British Embassy looking for one of their citizens who was in Mississippi at the time of the hurricane, and the people I was with were able to find this person, and I was able to report back to that embassy that their citizen was safe. So this stuff does happen. But while I was down there, I had, back then with flip phones, I was having trouble with radio communications. The band conditions were not that good, and so I had to really struggle. And then while I was there, I plugged my flip phone into my laptop. Back then you had to have a hard connection, and I had internet access. I couldn't talk on the phone, I couldn't send a text message on the phone, but I'll be darned if I didn't have a data connection. And so I was able to send emails back and forth also. So internet going down, I struggle with that. Does it go down? Yes. Usually not for long. So internet's a pretty strong contender for good communications, and so it really serves a good place in the alternate arena of communications. But if it does fail, then your contingency will be radio. And how you establish radio communications between your group is really personal between the group. An example I gave in another video is if you have a group that's composed of all ham radio operators, then more than likely you're going to use ham radio. However, if you're in a group that only has one ham radio operator, then you may not be using ham radio for communications inside your group. Now, you may want to use ham radio to talk to other groups outside of your group, but inside your group, you're probably not going to use ham radio because there's only one of you. And so it may be FRS, GMRS, CB radio, one of those services that you can use, but that's for your group to decide. And, based on environmental conditions, will help determine what really works for you. Again, radio communications for contingency is a good plan. It's less convenient than the first two, but it still allows you to talk to people, but you have to have a plan. In other words, you have to know, what channel or what frequency you're going to talk on, and have an alternate. You're going to have a date, a day, a time, a length of time that you'll be on the air to conserve your battery. So it's not as convenient, but it's still a good form of communication. And moving to the E part of PACE, this is the least convenient and the most difficult, but if there's nothing else, then it's the best. And with that, you are looking at, maybe having a walking route or a bicycle route or a driving route. You may have to drive to your group's homes to relay information, or you all may decide to meet at a Walmart somewhere in a parking lot at a certain time of day and meet and talk. Again, is it as convenient as your cell phone? No, but at least, once or twice a day, however you set that up, you all can get together and form a plan and act on that plan. So really kind of wrapping this up, communications plan takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of detail. You have to sit down and plan it. It doesn't just happen, especially when you lose the cell phone service and the internet service. Then things get a little more hinky. So as your group is forming and as your group is going through its stages of creating SOPs, standard operating procedures, consider your communications plan and consider PACE when developing your communications plan, and then practice it. Communications, especially working as a communicator for your group, takes practice and it takes skill. So keep that going. It's just food for thought. Hopefully over the next couple weeks I'll put out some more communications videos for you all to help you all get a grasp of what's going on. But in the meantime, Happy New Year, stay safe and stay secure.